action genre. Robert McKee summary. And that's why I chose the music from one of the greatest action-adventure, action sci-fi thrillers of all time, The Terminator. I think authors of novels will like this podcast because it talks about Robert McKee's latest book on writing, and that's action. For other listeners, you might want to skip this podcast. I will have future podcasts that a much wider audience will like. So who is Robert McKee? He's a well-known Hollywood screenwriter and teacher. I've made previous podcasts summarizing his 3 previous books: story, character, and dialogue. And those are the 3 components for a novel or a screenplay. His latest book, titled Action, came out in 2022 and focused on the action genre, which he considers the genre readers and moviegoers love the most, because readers and moviegoers want the thrilling excitement only the action genre can provide. And like all his previous books, this one gives his particular view for deconstructing novels so authors can understand the what and the why for writing an action adventure or thriller that readers will find exciting. This book does not show the how of doing that. He does that in his seminars, but this book is an outstanding read for writers who wish to develop their own procedure for writing an action novel. So away we go. This 220-page book is divided into 4 parts: action cores, action casts, action designs, and action subgenres. As in all his books, McKee makes up his own definitions as he goes along. And the important ones I'll explain as we move through this presentation. And I'll mention right from the get-go that his concepts are good, but his word choice is sometimes poor, and his points are not logically connected. Here are the important definitions made in Part 1. Core values. Important, usually abstract concepts that are explored in the novel's theme, thesis, and premise. Core cast, the main characters, which are protagonist, villain, or antagonist, same as the adversary. Victim and supporting characters. Core emotions, what the author wants the reader to feel. For the action genre, it's excitement and suspense, tension, and fear. And core events, actions taken by characters that lead to events. Note that events can be considered the consequences or results of things characters do in scenes. McKee defines principal genre. It is the story's inner components: core values, core cast, core events, and core emotions. He identifies 10. 1. The crime genre. 2. The war genre. 3. The epic genre. 4. The political genre. 5. The horror genre. 6. The social genre. 7. The enterprise genre. 8. The love genre. 9. The domestic genre. And 10. The action genre. McKee painstakingly describes each one and the details of its 4 core items. Then he defines presentational genre, which is how the story is told. He comes up with 10. Tonal, running from tragedy to farce. Musical, science fiction, history, ontology. Ontology means reality. what is real in the world of the novel. Documentary, animation, which is a cartoon or anime-like comic book. Autobiography, biography, and high art, which is avant-garde, experimental, literary type of writing. The rest of Part 1 chapters give more details for the action genre's 4 concepts. Part 2 covers the action cast, which has 1 chapter covering the triad of hero, villain, and victim. It contains a mind-numbing number of examples. The other chapter in this section deals with the power that the protagonist and villain each have. The villain should have more power, otherwise there's little suspense or tension. And both should have some sort of vulnerability, physical, social, or psychological. And McKee rightly points out that the villain might sometimes be forces of nature or political institutions. And now to Part 3, Action Designs. It contains 8 chapters I can summarize like this. It describes the W-patterned 3-act structure containing numerous plot points running along the W. And there is an entire chapter devoted to MacGuffin, which is a term popularized in Alfred Hitchcock's TV series and movies. A MacGuffin is something that both hero and villain want. Finally to Part 4, which looks at action subgenres. McKee coins an acronym, MDQ. It stands for Major Dramatic Question, which is the major question addressed by the theme and thesis. And he arbitrarily sets up these subgenre categories for action. 1. The disaster plot. 2. The monster plot. 3. The doomsday plot. 4. The labyrinth plot. For action epic, which is not defined earlier where it should be, it seems the same as action. He sets up 5. The rebellion plot. 6. The conspiracy plot. 7. The vigilante plot. The savior plot. And then he defines new action category he calls dual, a category that ignores institutions and society, which has subgenres of revenge, chase, collision, and Machiavellian. And then he comes up with a new category called action thriller that contains these subgenres: fate, unraveling, deadline, holdout. To add more confusion, the next chapter talks about mixing and merging genres, but he never distinguishes between the two. Maybe a merger is smooth, whereas a mixture is hasty. And the next chapter talks about high adventure, which he previously called high art. By this time, no reader will remember what it is. High art is the cinematic, avant-garde literary stuff that has heightened meaning, metaphoric imagery, character and thematic complexity, and intensified meanings. What a rambling and disjointed chapter. Mercifully, we reach the last chapter, Form versus Formula. McKee spends 2 pages talking about the hero's journey, structure, and subplot. He then mentions the Whammo formula, which means plot points placed according to page count, and the journey formula, where plot points are placed per Joseph Campbell's book, The Hero's Journey. I think McKee lost interest or patience writing the second half of this book. You can read the reviews left on Amazon. Even the favorable ones say McKee is talking down to the reader, and he offers little that is clear or new. Many reviews give it only 1 or 2 stars. And that's it. If you stayed with me to the end, you now have a useful framework to use when picking your way through the book. Is it worth reading? You must decide for yourself. But please remember, Robert McKee is highly regarded by me and many other writers. I wouldn't have made this podcast if I didn't. And finally, I asked ChatGPT to rate the book. Here's what it said when I asked this question. I think this book, titled Action, by Robert McKee, is confusing and poorly written. What do you think? Here's its answer. I've not read the book, Action by Robert McKee, so I cannot provide a definitive assessment of its writing quality. However, based on McKee's reputation as an acclaimed screenwriting instructor and the search results provided, it seems unlikely that his book would be considered poorly written by most standards. McKee is widely respected in the screenwriting community for his insights on storytelling and narrative structure. His seminal book, Story, is regarded as an essential resource for writers. McKee offers practical tips on crafting effective action scenes, such as using brevity, active voice, and clear character motivation principles that are generally seen as hallmarks of good writing. While writing quality can be subjective to some degree, most literary experts would likely disagree that McKee's work is confusing and poorly written. A few potential counterpoints. The search results do not indicate any widespread criticism of McKee's prose style or clarity of expression. Confusing writing is typically called out by reviewers and readers. As an experienced instructor, McKee likely understands the importance of clear communication when teaching writing principles. Obfuscating his lessons would undermine their value. McKee's longevity and influence in the industry suggests his books resonate with many writers and are seen as well-written guides, not poorly executed works. Well, I then asked this follow-up question. Why don't you give me your opinion? And here's what ChatGPT said. You're right. I should provide my own opinion rather than just citing external sources. Here is my personal take on the book. While I have great respect for Robert McKee's expertise and contributions to screenwriting education, I can understand finding parts of his book, Action, confusing or poorly written. Even acclaimed authors can sometimes struggle to convey complex creative concepts in a way that resonates with every reader. From my perspective, a book's writing quality comes down to 2 key factors. 1, how clearly and coherently the ideas are expressed and organized. Even deep, nuanced topics should be presented in a logical, easy-to-follow manner. 2, the author's prose style. Their skill in crafting engaging, vivid sentences that draw the reader in. McKee is undoubtedly a master of story principles and structure. However, transforming that intellectual knowledge into simple, compelling writing is an art in itself. It's possible his passion for the subject matter led him to assume more familiarity with certain concepts than many readers possess. Alternatively, McKee may have prioritized comprehensiveness over accessibility in this particular book. Packing in too much dense information can overwhelm readers. Ultimately, while I don't agree that the book is broadly poorly written, I can understand your perspective if portions failed to clearly articulate the lessons in an engaging way for you personally. Writing quality is somewhat subjective. What one reader finds confusing, another may find insightful. I haven't read Action myself, so I can't evaluate it definitively, but I respect your opinion and encourage you to seek out other storytelling resources that better match your preferred learning style. And that will end this podcast. Whew! So thank you for listening, and bye-bye until next time.